declining in East Africa. With the program signed today, the European Union is showing its commitment to work together with the governments from the region and UNODC, CITES and UNEP so that poaching figures continue to drastically go down as they remain much too high today. Beyond elephants, many other species are imperiled by wildlife trafficking in East Africa. Pangolins and rhinoceroses are other important examples of animal species which need more protection. But timber species are also affected by such illegal trade, especially rosewood and timber used for charcoal. To address all the facets of wildlife trafficking, the European Union supports a comprehensive approach and adopted a dedicated action plan last year in 2016. In terms of financial support, the European Union allocates around 160 million euros for programs directly linked to fighting wildlife and forest crime. The figure is much higher if we include all European Union programs linked to biodiversity, conservation, economic development or security, which also have positive impact against wildlife trafficking. In practice, this means that we support regional programs like the one signed today in other regions, for example in Central Africa, where we will sign this month a €5 million new grant with UNODC. The EU also supports protected areas in many African countries, which are hotspots for biodiversity, but also for peace and stability and economic development. We are also working with Asian countries, especially to curb the demand for illegal goods, with a program by UNODC in the Southeast Asia region and the upcoming launch of a new project in China with civil society organizations. We are strong supporters of the global activities of international organizations specialized against wildlife trafficking. This is the case of CITES, whose standing committee meeting last week showed again its resolve against trafficking in many animals and plant species and the fact that it is holding countries accountable for their action in this area. We are also planning to provide an additional €13.5 million in support to the International Consortium Against Wildlife Crime, the ICCWC, for its global program building on its successes and giving it a considerable boost to expand its activities. Finally, the European Union pays particular attention to the active role that local communities and civil society organizations should play in improving and in scaling up the fight against wildlife and forest crime. The European Union will dedicate significant financial support to these actors under the Wildlife and Forest Crime Project as a complement to its support to ICCWC. We are standing side by side with all of you to make a difference against wildlife trafficking and count on your cooperation for the future of what is of our common heritage. Thank you very much and good luck.
Thank you, Commissioner, and thank you for the extraordinary support of the European Union. You mentioned last week's Standing Committee meeting. It was our largest ever, with over 600 people. There's only 19 people on the Standing Committee and 600 come to observe the proceedings. And the European Union, its member states, play such an active role there in the technical workings of the Convention. It's supportive of the financial support and the extraordinary political support you provide as well. We're very fortunate to also have Director General Zwede with us today, representing the Executive Director of the UN Office of Drugs and Crime, our good friend Yuri Fedotov. Director General, thank you.
Thank you very much. Cabinet Secretary Professor Judy Wahungu, EU Commissioner Carmen Nouvella, my dear colleague Stefano De Jacque, and John Scanlon, Secretary General CITES, ladies and gentlemen. It gives me a great pleasure to take part in this event today on behalf of the Executive Director of UNODC, who is also, in fact, the Director General of the United Nations Office in Vienna, my dear colleague, Mr. Fedotov. Living in this region provides one with a window to some of the finest wildlife in the world. It's especially evident for those of us privileged to be based here in Kenya to appreciate the urgency of protecting and conserving this wildlife. It is a mandate that the United Nations takes particular pride in. This commitment between the European Union and the United Nations for the implementation of the cross-regional wildlife conservation in Eastern and Southern Africa and the Indian Ocean brings together the three United Nations institutions, namely the Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species and Wildlife Fauna and Flora, CITES, the Convention on the Conservation of Migratory Species of Wildlife Animals, and the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime. This worthy initiative showcases the best of what the United Nations has to offer. It draws on the expertise of various United Nations entities to ensure we deliver a response that is fit for purpose, and it leverages the comparative advantages of others to ensure communities and government institutions get the best technical advice and value for money. As we move rapidly towards 2030, providing technical assistance to member states as they strive to achieve the bold targets of the Sustainable Development Goals is a challenge of scale. Goal 15, protecting, restoring, and promoting sustainable use of terrestrial ecosystems, sustainably managed forests, combating desertification, and halting and reversing land degradation and halt biodiversity loss is no exception, and the European Union, with its generous financial contribution, is helping ensure that the children of Africa will be able to witness the magnificent diversity its land has to offer. Wildlife crime is a transnational organized crime, one that knows no boundaries and one that affects not only the wildlife, but also the livelihood and the environment of the populations that cohabit the space. I'm pleased to see that this initiative will not only support national authorities in the criminal justice system, but it will also work with intergovernmental bodies in Eastern Africa, Southern Africa, and the Indian Ocean to support regional responses to wildlife crime and conservation and management of transfrontier conservation areas. The 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development has provided a platform to address global challenges in an all-encompassing manner. It is high time that criminal activities of this nature be brought to the top list of global priorities. The European Union, with this contribution commitment totaling 17.2 million euros, demonstrates once again its unwavering support to our collective efforts to achieve the SDGs. I look forward to regular updates on the state of implementation of this commitment. This is tall order, but so are the stakes at play. I sincerely wish you all a successful implementation phase. This joint undertaking can only result in greater diversity decades from now, which will be of great benefit not only for the African continent, but indeed for the entire world. I thank you very much for your kind attention.
Thank you very much, Director General. And can I just share a bit of positive news with you? We are facing a surge in illegal trade in wildlife. The European Union has funded a program since 2001 called Monitoring Illegal Killing of Elephants. That's now minimising illegal killing of elephants and other endangered species, but we've been able to track the level of illegal killing. It reached a high point in 2011. Between 2010 and 12, around 100,000 elephants were killed on the African continent for their ivory. But over the last 5 years, we've seen a decline over a period of 5 years. Not low enough yet. We're still in a situation where more elephants are being killed than are being born. But in Eastern Africa, and this has a lot to do with what Cabinet Secretary and her team have done, we've seen poaching levels go back to pre-2008 levels. due to a huge concerted effort both here within Kenya and in Eastern Africa with great support from the European Union. So it shows that with collective effort, with political will, with the financing and technical support we need, we can win this fight, and we are starting to win this fight in relation to the African elephant, in particular here in Eastern Africa. So thank you very much to you, Cabinet Secretary, for everything you've done in leading that charge. With that, I think we had we were going to have a ceremony here with a handover. We were going to sign, I think, these documents here first to show that we're all signing up to this wonderful pledge of €17.2 million to support this fight against illicit wildlife trafficking affecting multiple species, not just the African elephant. Yeah, we're going to do that, yeah. Yep. So if I could invite everyone from the panel to come down and stand in front of these wonderful banners. I'll get out of everybody's way. So if you could all turn around so we get the colourful side facing the photographers. Good. And now I have the largest cheque I've ever held in my life. Commissioner Vella will hand it to Director General Zwede. And if I could do this, it's not made out to me. Here we go. Judy, you stand. Thank you all, and if anybody had any technical questions, myself, my colleagues from CMS and from UN Office of Drugs and Crime will be available to take any questions from you. But now we'll invite the panellists to depart and go about their busy schedules. Thanks very much for coming.